protesting for the same purpose. Then you find the feminist and the Hamas rapists on the same page. It's insanity. And after that, they carry a slogan, say anti-genocide slogan, while they're chanting genocide, chanting. They are so conflicted. They're so confused. They don't know the master that they are serving. And that literally represents the reality of Palestine, because there is no such thing. And I've been saying this, and people think I'm exaggerating or like an assault on Palestine. And I say, no, it is not an existing thing. It's an umbrella for all those who love chaos, who want to see destruction. This is what it is.
So I've seen you on many TV shows, right, with many hosts, both in America and in Europe, and you've been very, very successful in putting the allegations down and debating people on screen. What in your character, Musa, has actually made you able to confront all of these people? And after you basically were a private citizen before October 7th, you had almost retired. But now you're back. So, and you're debating all these people all the time. What keeps you going on?
Look, when I started a long time ago, before I went public, I had about 10 years of daily effort trying to stop Hamas madness. Not only Hamas, also Yasser Arafat, the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, and their affiliation with suicide bombing attacks. So 10 years of witnessing bloodshed, and every time we failed to bring a suicide bomber or capture them before they reach their target. When the terrorist attacks happened, the Israeli intelligence would bring me the photos freshly from the suicide bombing scene. I would be the first to see that in order to identify the suicide bomber, to know who sent them. So there was no suicide bombing scene that I did not see the atrocities firsthand, and it was sickening. And day and night trying to capture those masterminds, the bomb makers, and those who are sending them. I came to realize that we were fighting against the ghost. So I decided to move on, because also my life was in a very dangerous situation. When I came to the United States, I decided to write a book about it, which was, I don't want to say committing suicide, but bringing a death sentence over my head. Knowing that I would lose my family, I would be labeled as a traitor, that people will misunderstand me, I bring shame on my family, and I might get killed in the process. And I didn't know that you would actually make money out of writing books. It was truly, I started writing the book on a curb, on a street curb, as a homeless person. So we wrote the book, and the book became successful, but also I had a great failure, because I lost my entire family, and it was so painful for everybody. But progressives, or what's so-called liberals in the United States, canceled me, because it touched on the ideological dimension to the conflict, which is the Islamic belief system. And the left-wing liberals, the Obama administration, and many other Democrats, they did not like my approach, that was straightforward, that the ideological dimension, if we keep ignoring it, the problem will continue forever. So my reward was to lose my family and to get canceled also. And I was okay with that. So when I had a dead end in America, I moved on, and I went far away. And I lived on a small island for a very long period of time. And I started over. I started doing something completely different, and I became successful in it. And I really loved what I was doing there. But then October 7 happened, and it brought me in the worst possible way. Why? Because I have warned everybody that Hamas is not good news. And I said it's not only Hamas, it's the Muslim Brotherhood. And I said also it's the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority is not less dangerous than Hamas. They are the ones who created all this chaos for them. So when people did not listen, and I had to come back on October 7th, I am fed up trying to do what's so-called hasbara. Time over for explaining myself, for explaining Israel's position, because Israel is fighting for its very existence, and me too. Many people, hundreds of millions of people want me to cease to exist for no reason. I haven't killed any of their tribesmen. Why do you want me to cease to exist? So when they push us to the corner, to this degree, then we will have to fight. And this is why I identify with the Israeli struggle, because with the Jewish struggle, we are in the same boat, dealing with the same savages. So now, is this the time to sit down and rationalize with those who want to drag me into a rabbit hole, trying to explain every aspect of the conflict, and they are sitting in their comfort, and people are dying. Children are dying. Hamas is killing Jewish children in the morning for revenge. Then they are using their own children as human shields in the evening for propaganda. This is the reality of the situation. So I need to sit here with some Joe Schmo and go into their rabbit hole, try to, no, get to the surface. Talk to me. Who qualify you even to talk about this thing? Why are you angry? Why are you being emotional and protesting and building encampment at UCLA and Columbia universities? So these people don't qualify, and I think they have no clue what Palestine is. But they, I think, pro-chaos. They want to delegitimize Israel. They want to delegitimize a small minority, a religious minority that is very successful. And I think this is the core of their objection.
I think that one thing that's on our mind, Musaf, when we hear you speak, because you really speak without a voice too. Trust me, many of us sitting here could say exactly what you're saying, except we haven't lived it like you've lived it. What was the exact moment that made you change? What was that moment? What was the thing that got you to say, I have to switch sides. I can't do this anymore?
Look, if I tell you that there was an exact moment where I saw the light, I lied to you. And many people use this tactic to show the world that they became just better people. I don't think so. As I told you, this is an evolution. The chain of events that brought me here is very long. It's full of adventure. It's full of taking risk. In order to know the truth, we must take risk, get out of our comfort, be able to see the other as ourselves, identify on a human level, integrate consciously. But if I look at the most important, let's say, moments where I raised the question, my experience in prison was an important one. When Hamas tortured Palestinians in Israeli prisons. As a result, hundreds of prisoners were killed and tortured, as I witnessed for about 16 months back in 1996. And I asked myself the question, even though Hamas brought me the comfort, the security, the status, the prestige, the power, I saw that it was danger against humanity, against our society. And I asked myself, what if Hamas succeed in destroying Israel and building their state? Is this what they're going to do to our people? Well, this is a mini Hamas government in prison. They had ministers, they had Amir, they had everything. And this is how
inside the Israeli jail.
In jail. So this was the question, And this was the beginning of my rebellion against my father's organization. He knew that. It's not that it was a secret. But it looked like he couldn't do anything about it. It's a monster that he created in theory. Then the monster kept growing to a degree where he lost control of it. And that's the difference between imagination and manifestation. Back in 1987, they were chanting in Ramallah from the river to the sea. And they started the intifada. They invited so many demons into this intifada, opposing extremes, the communists and the Islamists and the nationalists, all type of people, and the rapists and the pedophile. They invited everybody. With no moral compass, with no agendas, except revolution for the sake of revolution, for destruction. And what happened 36 years later? It was crowned with a genocide. So, in theory, it may sound romantic from the river to the sea. But then, nobody's in charge, and it goes out of control. And this is why I'm telling America and Americans, be careful. And this is part of my firm stand that I'm not willing to compromise. It's not the time right now to play a mind game, not with me, because I have witnessed what intifada really means. And they targeted back in Ramallah and the Palestinian territories, they targeted educational institutions at the beginning, then they targeted economy, transportation, and this is how things went out of control. Prior to the first intifada, I was able to go with my father to the beach, to Tel Aviv, to the zoo, to Yafo. We did not have even one checkpoint. And when we got lost in Tel Aviv, the local residents of Tel Aviv helped us navigate our way. We drove our own car, and everything was peaceful. When the first intifada came, this is when things start changing, especially when we had mass stabbing and mass shooting, then the suicide bombing, then the Oslo brought Yasser Arafat, and legitimized, terrorism became legitimized. So, what are we witnessing here in the United States? They're targeting educational institutions, they're closing bridges, tomorrow they will target the economy, and they will have any reason for them to they just want to create chaos. So this is where we cannot compromise, and we have to stand firm, otherwise they are going to ruin civilization. This is what Palestine stands for. So for me, it's, as you see, the traumas of the past and the eyewitness within it. It's not only a personal experience as much as what this force is capable of doing. If we let them do whatever they want to do, they will corrupt Earth.
You know, you mentioned the genocide word, and I want to push you a little bit on that. You had an interview with Dr. Phil a little bit after October 7th, when you said that Hamas really wanted to do ethnic cleansing, right? And that's part of what they were doing on October 7th, and that's sort of a way in which they worship Allah. What do you mean by that? Because a lot of American Jews still do not believe that Islam is by nature a violent religion.
It's not even a religion. Why would they consider it a religion? Then it's the only religion that there is a desperate need. There is a desperate need to say Islam, the religion of peace. The only religion. The Quran is filled with Jewish hatred. And of course, I understand why the Jewish people avoid to open a large-scale confrontation with a religious minority worldwide, close to 2 billion people. It's a destructive force. And this is why even America is compromising. The American government is compromising. All the major forces, superpowers. And the thing is, with the Islam, how long we're going to go ignoring this reality, the Islamic hatred? Then I say simply, if Allah hates the Jewish people in the Quran, and that's the main Islamic source, the source of legislation. It's supposed to be the divine words. So why am I expecting from the followers of that faith, of that religion, to love the Jewish people? So I'm not saying to go on a war with the Muslims. I personally am at war with them because I'm one of them. And I have the right to criticize and to say whatever I want to say. And I don't need that permission. I don't wait for anybody to give me validation to what I say. But for you guys, you don't have to do the same. But at least you need to admit that what happened on October 7th is inspired by some religious scripture. Okay. In the Bible, there could be some violence. There could be the death penalty. But it's the death penalty. It's not asking for a genocide specifically against a religion. You will not find in the Bible that say, kill the Muslims. But Muhammad demonstrated that when he annihilated the Jewish communities of the Arab Peninsula because they did not recognize him as a legitimate prophet. So now, whether if this narrative is true or not, or the historic account is accurate or not, this is what Muslims believe. It's based on two main narratives, Ibn Ishaq and Ibn Hisham. And the two narratives describe in detail what Muhammad did to the Jewish communities of the Arab Peninsula. I personally think that they are not true, but Muslims take them literally. And Muhammad's action, Muhammad's sayings, Muhammad's deeds are considered legislation in Islam. Second in importance or significance to the Quran. So if we are dealing with this, it means legislation. Hamas is not acting from void. And they have actually an accurate interpretation of their religion, of what they are doing. So for the Jewish people, we need to bring this awareness to the rest of other religions. That include Hinduism, and this is what I've been doing with my friends close to Modi. And you may have noticed that he was speaking clearly against Islam because Hindus suffered a lot because of the Muslims and the Muslim violence. Not only the Jewish people, but Hindus, and India is about a little bit over 1 billion people. And I think this is where we need to join efforts, not to persecute Muslims or attack the Muslims, as much as we need to tell the Muslims as a majority that we don't accept your violent approach. Reform your religion or drop it completely. If you want to stay Muslims, no problem, but keep it in the 7th century. Don't bring it to the 21st century. There is no place for abusing religious minorities. So if Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism get united, not to attack the Muslims, but to stand firmly and say the violence in the Quran, the Muslims need to figure it out. And any form of it, anywhere, not only in Israel, in Indonesia, in the United States, in Europe, wherever it is totally rejected. If we have this form, then we can push the Islamic regimes to do some change.
So that brings me to an important question, which is Israel's under a lot of pressure, right? What happens after the war in Gaza is over? What happens the day after? And everybody's telling Israel, look, you can't eradicate Hamas, you cannot eradicate their ideology, you cannot wipe them off the face of the earth, they're going to be there, there's nothing you can do, right? So you kind of like have to accept that reality, and you have to have a ceasefire. What happens the day after? Because Israel's going to finish this war, they have to. It's an existential problem. And what happens the day after? The Palestinian Authority cannot govern, and of course Hamas cannot govern. What's the future of the Palestinians?
Maybe we don't want Palestinians in the future. And again, listen, when I say this, by the way, when I say this doesn't mean I'm not calling for ethnic cleansing, because Palestinians, there is no such thing as Palestine. It's not a race. I understand. Okay, that's number one. It's an ideology. It's an ideology. So, for example, Egypt in the past century, they dealt with the Muslim Brotherhood by the lethal force. And they were able to eradicate the Muslim Brotherhood. And every time they rise, they just crushed them. Because when you have very dangerous ideology like that, that is out there to hunt and kill and loot and kidnap people and kidnap infants, blackmail the whole globe, then this is a big problem. We cannot tolerate this type of ideology, and this is, by the way, Palestine. Yasser Arafat was a Muslim Brotherhood affiliate. Hamas is a Muslim Brotherhood. Al-Qaeda was inspired by the Muslim Brotherhood. That Muslim Brotherhood is still a legal organization in the United States. Even though in Egypt, the birthplace of the Muslim Brotherhood been outlawed, the United States of America or the US Congress failed 3 attempts to outlaw the Muslim Brotherhood. In fact, they allowed them into Congress, on Capitol Hill, in the US government. They consult with them, they hire them as advisors to just mislead the American naive politicians, and they've been working. So now, you ask me about because if it's possible. It is possible, and this is what we are doing right now, and we had no other choice but the lethal force, and the lethal force works. Now, we wouldn't be able to eradicate evil completely, but we can bring it to the, from a wild tree to a seed. But the seed will always be there. And if we don't keep watching, then it's going to grow again, and it's going to be brutal. Some 100 years ago, it was the rise of the Nazis. It became appealing to the masses, and with no time, like a wildfire, Nazism took over in 5 years. And this is why I'm outrageous, because what's happening right now, what's so-called Palestine, is the new Nazis. It's a very serious problem, and it's not only in Gaza, it's global. So the world must be united. Civilized people, any human with consciousness must get on board in this fight. Because it's not only in Gaza. Have you forgot about Lebanon, where the situation is boiling up now? Iran, we still have another big problem, the Islamic problem. So, not to forget Europe. So we could be at the verge of a global chaos. And I think the world is inviting violence. Many people want the violence. They want revolution, they want chaos, they want global intifada. And this is why I've been saying from day one, don't globalize it. Localize it, keep it in Gaza. What happened on October 7 cannot be just forgotten. And I'm speaking from a security point of view, as someone who was operating on the ground on a regular basis for 10 years. I knew that Israel has no choice. You know, people yesterday say, oh, 200 people civilians got killed, and of course it's Hamas statistics, for the rescuing the 4 hostages. And they were upset, they were so sad. Naturally, any human being with consciousness would celebrate yesterday. But the pro-Palestine were saddened yesterday for the rescue of the hostages. And we tell them what's the alternative. Then they come say, diplomacy. What diplomacy? They want to release mass murderers like Sinwar. They want thousands of Sinwar model on the streets, back on the streets. In what law? So, all those who are calling for diplomacy, ceasefire now, they want Hamas to stay in power, using Hamas propaganda. They want Israel to surrender. And this was Hamas' tactic from day one. They committed genocide on October 7th. Then they wanted Israel to surrender on October 8th by taking the hostages. This is their tactic. And this is why, and this was my message to the hostage families when I sat down with them. Lift the pressure of the Israeli government. They don't have the hostages, they don't have your children. And redirect the pressure on Hamas and all the foreign entities that given legitimacy to Palestine for free, with nothing in return. Spain, Norway, they could have said, we We might recognize a Palestinian state, but give us the hostages back. Make one condition. So it's not Gaza only. It's not Gaza only. We are dealing with a phenomenon, and the Palestinian syndrome. This needs to be studied, need to be addressed, not only on a political and other levels, most importantly, psychological level. Why all these people identifying with Palestine? Why it's not a race? It's not an ethnic group. It's not a distinct language. It's a colonial entity. Whether you know the Romans empowered it or the British empowered it, whatever it is, just it's a hostile state. So we need to educate the people on the origins of this, and I'm afraid that it is not going to end in Gaza. It is going to drag, and violence is going to spread. It could reach the United States. All what's happening, by the way, I'm not here to trade in fear or to scare you guys, but this crowd that protesting for Palestine today, tomorrow they will have an angry cause. They will always find an angry cause. And among us, people who are pro-violence, pro-disorder. So expect more of this. What's happening today is only indication. And this is why I invite many Americans to actually stand with Israel today. Because if we don't leash those unconscious people on the streets, then tomorrow they will come back 10 times stronger.
This is a difficult question, Musaf. The last time I was in Israel, I was in the Magen David Adom headquarters. We had a presentation of some of the stuff that was found in the backpacks of the Hamas terrorists who infiltrated Israel. And you know, they had the maps, they had the instructions, they had condoms. So they were prepared for sexual violence. This is not something that randomly happened. And I want to know, I mean, you that live in their world, I understand, I can't understand, I mean, they get into Israel, they murder us. Why did they have to rape women? Why did they have to act with that sexual violence? Where does that come from in the ideology of Islam?
In Islam, it's actually